Jenny. Hello, Jenny. Can you hear us?
I can, yeah.
Hi, Jenny. I have a note here saying that you are a Christian and you wanted to call in and kind of talk to us about that.
Yes, I got your number from my brother, and I don't know what this is about. He just said to call. But my concern is I heard the last caller, and I want to make sure that this isn't some kind of trick.
Well, I don't think we're a trick. No. This is my new show. Here,
like, you're not going to try to get me to, like, say something sinful or anything?
Well, that depends on your definition of sinful, honestly. It really does. But this is a show
going
about...
against the Bible.
Well, this is a show about exploring people's beliefs. And so it doesn't have to be Christian. You could be a Muslim. You could be a Hindu. You could believe in Bigfoot. You can believe in fairies. Whatever. We're just kind of here to talk about that a little bit and kind of share our experiences and stuff. And so, yeah, that's really all we're here for.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that okay with you?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Well, first tell us about yourself. So you are a Christian. Do you have a specific denomination?
I grew up in Pentecostal church all my life. So I've been in that faith. Jesus is the one true, way to heaven. I've been that way since I was born.
Awesome. Cool. So you kind of grew up Christian, you kind of grew up Pentecostal specifically. Was there a particular, what would you say is your biggest reason as to why you are a Christian?
Well, I would say that I rely a lot on my Bible for my reasons to get through different things in life. And Matthew 19:26 says that with man anything is impossible, but with God all things are possible. So I try to live by those kinds of things and say I'm just a mere person, but with God I can be better.
So your belief kind of comes from a reliance on God and that knowing that He can make you better. Is that kind of right, or?
Well, I mean, everyone's sinful, right? So if you're not living for God, then you're living for man, or you're even worse, you're living for Satan. And you want to be a good person, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of wondering how you came to the conclusion that there is a God.
Well, mainly through, studying the Bible, going to church, listening to my preacher.
Okay, cool. Godless Iowan, do you want to ask a few questions?
Well, I'd like to ask, because I was a former Pentecostal as well. What makes you think that Pentecostals get it right?
I would say probably because, you just know that you're in the presence of God when you're there in the services and you're, feeling the congregation just come together and you can feel His presence.
Would you say that Baptists and Methodists, Episcopals, they don't feel a presence of God in their services?
I'm not saying Pentecostal is the only way to go. I think there are some other ones that are okay, but I think there's a lot more that aren't.
So do you realize that the Pentecostal faith is only about 100 years old, and prior to that there was no Pentecostalism?
There probably, I don't know that, but I would say there probably was a version of it or something, because it would make no sense then if it wasn't as old as the church, the church itself being the Church of Jesus.
See, one of the big things with Pentecostalism is the speaking in tongues. And in the Bible, the speaking in tongues that they're talking about is something known as xenolalia, which is speaking in other languages. But the speaking in tongues that's done in Pentecostal churches is known as glossolalia, which is basically just speaking in syllables. And that did not exist until the Pentecostal church came about 100 years ago with the Azusa Street revivals.
So you're thinking that there was no speaking in tongues prior to that?
Well, not the glossolalia version. The speaking in tongues, according to the Bible, is a speaking in another language. Like when you look at the book of Acts, Acts 2, when they're speaking in tongues, they're actually speaking in other languages that people around them are saying. How do they know my language? That does not happen in Pentecostal churches now. When you hear a message in tongues, you're not hearing another actual language.
Correct. Only the angels and God can understand it.
Let me pipe in here for a sec.
Okay.
If we, we talk about the glossolalia and the speaking in tongues. In my Christianity, we didn't have that. I kind of grew up in kind of a Methodist/Baptist tradition between my parents, and that wasn't really something that I experienced. So I really don't have as much experience with that area. But if we could determine that there was a natural explanation for why these speaking in tongues happen, or why these personal feelings of the presence of God happen while we're in worship, would that change your confidence at all in your belief in God?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Sure.
What do you mean by natural explanation?
If we were to say, explain that what you were experiencing, and again, I'm not saying that I'm able to do this or that anyone is able to do this, but if someone were to show you some charts and some scans from an MRI scanner saying, look, whenever you're in church and you're doing these things, these brain states are happening because this is something that's self-inflicted when you're in a group setting and there's a lot of excitement and you kind of put yourself into these states where you experience these experiences. If an authority, maybe a scientific authority, were to kind of give you that kind of evidence, would that change your belief in God at all?
Okay, I would have two comments to
that. Sure.
My first one would be that I would think that God caused it to happen on those other scans too.
Okay.
And then my second one would be, if someone was trying to convince me that God isn't real from scans, I would think that he was being unduly influenced by the devil.
Okay. Interesting.
So what evidence could be provided that would make you question?
That's a really good question.
Because
it's really hard to answer that question because I haven't ever encountered anything yet that makes me question God.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'm a former Pentecostal pastor. I know the exact feelings that you're talking about that you get in your services. And I can tell you that right now, I could start speaking in tongues and have those exact same feelings exhibit in my brain and have that feel-good feeling hit me. Now, the Bible teaches that the Holy Spirit cannot dwell in an unclean temple. I'm an atheist. So would that make you question?
I'm hearing you speak in tongues? Is that what you're asking?
I'm saying I myself am just one person, but I'm a member of what's known as the Clergy Project. And I know several former Pentecostal pastors, and we can all speak in tongues the exact same as we did when we were ministers, and we're all atheists now.
I mean, speaking in tongues is a gift, so I don't think that alone would convince me of anything. I mean, because you can fake it, and I'm not saying you would, but,
sure,
someone could fake it. And I also don't think that once you learn it, I'm going to try to rephrase this, once you learn how to do it and once you've received it, then you know what it feels like, right? So you could recreate that again, even after you turned your back on God.
So, Jenny, I think you pointed out something really important in that these kinds of experiences or this speaking in tongues action can be faked. So, I mean, if that's true, doesn't that mean, or does it mean, rather, that as evidence for God, it should be under suspect, or maybe it's not the most reliable evidence that we have that a God exists?
I don't believe I have any evidence. I mean, I don't think that on this particular topic that there's sufficient evidence to convince any certain person.
But you, if I may ask, though, you are convinced that there is a God.
Yes.
So I guess the purpose of me asking these questions is really trying to get down to what is it that's convincing you that should be convincing us that there is a God?
Well, I'm not trying to convince you, though. I'm just trying to tell you, like, okay, what I was told was to call and say what I believe.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm not trying to convince you. I mean, that's your choice.
Yeah. And let me be clear.
But I will hope that you come to pray and accept, but
I appreciate that.
I'm not trying to convince you.
Yeah. And maybe I misworded that. You don't have to convince us of anything if you don't want to.
Oh, good, because I'm not good at debate.
Yeah, sure. What I'm more getting at is I want to know what convinces you. So I want to know what you find personally convincing that your belief is true, and I want to know the reasons why.
Okay, so, I've kind of brought up the presence that you can feel. That's one thing. The sense of peace that you feel when you pray. Reading the scripture, and even more so when it's read to you by a man of the cloth, a man of God, when they're up there and they're preaching it, and they're just really making you feel like this is got to be from Him. And also, a lot of it is like just when you have no one else to hear you, He's always there.
Wow. Okay, so you list out like 5 different reasons, which is great for us to talk about.
Was that too many?
No. That's fantastic because, these are the reasons why you believe, so we want to talk about those reasons. I think Godless Iowan was wanting to ask you about one of those reasons, right?
Well, once again, you mentioned the feeling that you get in prayer and in services and things along those lines. You do know
prayer is a much different feeling to me than the one when you're praying in church. Or when you're in church, there's a different feeling. I don't want you to misunderstand.
Oh no, I understand.
Okay.
I totally get what you're saying with that. I had different feelings when I was a minister, but there's a possibility that we end this call and the next call we go to is a Muslim man, and he could say the exact same thing about his experiences. Muslims feel a sense of peace when in prayer. Muslims feel a sense of awe when they're in their temples. So what differentiates between the Christian God and the Muslim God? What makes you sure that you've picked the right God?
Well, I would say that it's probably because Jesus died for us. And I don't believe that happened in the Muslim faith.
Why did God need a human sacrifice in order for His plan to go?
Can I reroute this a little bit?
You can. Yes.
Only because I'd rather not talk about theology too much. I'd rather just get on to kind of what she believes already. So Jenny, thanks again for calling, by the way. I really appreciate it. I hope you're having a good time here.
Still a little bit scared.
Yeah. What's making you scared?
Well, my parents always taught me that you don't question it. So I kind of feel like I'm doing something a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to discuss it like it's not real, or trying to justify it. Let's put it
Sure.
that way. Well,
why do you think they ask you not to question it?
Because it's a sin.
But why do you think it's a sin?
It's like doubting God.
Yeah. Do you think doubting God is a sin?
Is it one of the 10 Commandments? No. But is it wrong to doubt them? I believe so. Yes. I mean, that's how I was taught.
Is there any other belief that you hold that you would consider it sinful or wrong to doubt outside of God? Like if you didn't believe, I don't know, is there any other belief that you can come up with besides a belief in God where you feel like doubting would make you uncomfortable in the same way?
Can you give me an example?
Well, so it's kind of hard because I don't know.
What you mean.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this because my point in asking this question, I'll get straight to it, is if you don't hold the same kind of fears about doubting your belief that your car is going to work, or that the sun is rising tomorrow, or that your family loves you, why is the belief in God cause you so much anxiety? Why would this be a sin and not a doubt in something else?
Well, those other things aren't important, really.
Well,
they're not
Jenny,
really faith-based.
Do you think there's a separate? Sorry, Godless, I keep interrupting you.
You're okay.
Like starting my car. Well, I've got the keys. I got gas in it. The battery works. I know it's going to start.
Yeah.
Jenny, I'd like to ask you about a biblical passage. When Jesus appeared to his disciples and Thomas doubted, was Thomas called a sinner in that situation? No, he was blessed.
Thomas.
But he was said, it says, "Blessed are you because you've seen." And Thomas was doubting. So by that passage, can we take doubting as being a sin?
I think because he was in the presence of God himself, he was given.
Wouldn't that be even more?
For privileges.
But if Jesus was standing before him and he was still doubting, wouldn't that be worse than doubting when you don't have Jesus standing right before you?
See, the way I would take that is to say that he was allowed to, because Jesus was trying to show how he was forgiving and he was loving to the people who were witnesses. And I don't think that means everyone can doubt him.
Well, I would like for you to go through the New Testament and find scriptures where it says "don't doubt." If you can find that, definitely look me up on Twitter and send them to me. Because I would.
Twitter.
Well, you can reach me on, if you have Facebook. I have a Godless Iowan page. I'm pretty easy to reach out.
I have Facebook.
But yeah, that's what I would say. Just go through and look through the scriptures to see if it actually teaches that doubting is a sin.
But I mean, don't we have to have faith in God? Like don't we have to say that we have that? Because if you don't have the faith, then you have doubt.
Yeah, but what's wrong with doubt?
Well, if you doubt, then you're basically saying that you think there's a part of you that doesn't believe in him.
Jenny, neither Godless Iowan or I believe in God.
I kind of understood that from the previous caller, which is why I didn't really.
But you know that I did.
Right, but
I'm sorry.
I did believe. I was very devout Pentecostal pastor for a decade. So I understand your struggle. I was taught that doubt is a sin as well. Mm-hmm. But going through the scriptures, I could not find that. Now you can find scriptures that say don't doubt, but it's never called out as a sin. It's never once said you can't doubt, because God is supposed to be a parent where we can question.
In the Bible, when you're told not to do something and it's not listed as a sin, it doesn't mean that you can just go and do it because it doesn't specifically say, "Oh, this is a sin."
Mm-hmm. I hear you on that, but there are many stories.
I believe it's in James where it says something like, you must believe and not doubt.
It says in the scriptures, don't doubt, but it doesn't call them a sin, because there's also passages in the Bible numerous times where believers would ask God for signs to prove that he was really sending them on this, wanting them to do something.
Yeah, but here's the thing, because it says plainly that the person that doubts should not expect to receive anything from the Lord, and that a person who says so is double-minded and unstable.
I'm unsure of the scripture that you're talking about there.
I can look it up. Hold just one second. I got my Bible here.
Well, we can. I think we're gonna have to move on to some other callers now. Actually,
okay.
But Jenny, this was a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed talking to us. Are you on Facebook at all?
Yes.
Okay.
I have Facebook.
If you want to continue having a conversation with me or some other people, I have a Facebook page for this show. It's called Truth Wanted, and you're more than happy to join if you want. And it's just a community of really like-minded people that really just like having conversations like this. We're not going to judge you. We all come from very different backgrounds. Yeah. And if you want to talk to us on there, I'd love to keep talking to you about this. And if not, that's cool. But thanks again for calling either way. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, have a great day.
You too.
Yeah, that was really, really interesting. I really wanted to talk a little bit more about why she feared so much having these questions, what was causing that.
Well, I think it was pretty clear that she was told, if you doubt, you're sinful and going to hell. So that puts a lot of fear, and there is a deep fear in the Pentecostal church. Pentecostals do not teach like some other faiths do that once you get saved, you're good. They teach that even a single sin that you didn't realize you committed could keep you out of heaven. So there is constant prayer for forgiveness of sins in Pentecostal churches. You constantly are told that you're nothing without God, and that you're a wretched being. And so there's fear driven into you from the very youngest of ages in Pentecostal churches. I know the feeling that she experienced there, because I had that same feeling when I started doubting myself.
Yeah. I don't like people being afraid to talk about things.
Yeah.
To me, that says that there's something wrong across the board when people aren't allowed to, have conversations about these things. I think if something is true, you should be able to demonstrate that it's true without fearing that it's not true. And even now, if I was convinced that there was a God somehow, I shouldn't be afraid of that prospect. I should try to make myself open to that because I want to believe true things. So
I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
And, I liked where you brought up if there was any other situation where she would be that fearful of doubt. Because if I were to say, Dan, I have $1 million I'm sending to you next week. Go ahead and buy a house this week because it's coming. You would probably go, no, I think I'll hold off.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't fear that.
Yeah.